So in the previous video, we looked at how we could store values in a variable, and most of the examples we used were just numbers. But in JavaScript, we have other data types, other ways we could use or represent data. I'm going to run you through the different data types we have in no particular order. So the first one we're looking at here, it's number. So numbers are things like 100 to even decimals. So any number from 0, even negative numbers are all under the number data type. And the next we have a string. Now string is just a group of letters or numbers or characters that we wrap inside a single quote or a double quote. So once you have something wrapped in a single quote or double quote, it becomes a string. Now the next kind of data type we're looking at is Boolean. Boolean is a special kind of data type that it's either true or false. So we normally use this in conditions or logic where you have to return true or false. Now another type we're going to look at is null. Now null is a variable with no value. And before I dive into what null really is, let's also look at undefined. Undefined is another kind of data type. So these two, null and undefined, are kind of related, but there's a difference between them. So null is when we define a variable and we say that variable has no value, has null value, it's empty. So we are explicitly setting that variable to an empty set, okay, or something that we set a variable to nothing. So that's when we have the null. Undefined is when you do not set a variable to null. In fact, it's done automatically, usually when your browser cannot find the variable. So the variable is maybe not declared or you've not defined it. So the data type becomes undefined. That variable becomes undefined. Yes, it has no value because it's not defined. But then the difference between undefined and null is that null was actually defined to be null, and undefined wasn't even defined in the first place. So it returns undefined. Then we have another kind of data type, which is objects. Objects are more complex. We have things like dates, arrays, and literals. Then we have a new kind of data type called symbols. Now I kind of like use a different color for object here to show that object is what we refer to as a non-primitive type. Now every other type here, the number, strings, boolean, null, undefined, symbols, they're all primitive types. So primitive type simply means that it's not an object. Okay, and there are some other things that some other properties or characteristics a primitive type has, which I will not be diving into now. But one of the major ways to know, okay, this is a primitive type, this is not a primitive type, is that a primitive type is not an object, while non-primitive, it's an object. As simple as that. So let us start by diving into what each of these data type truly is and look at examples.